Welcome to our channel, ladies and gentlemen. I was reading an article about how the main opposition leader in Tanzania was arrested, Mr. Tundu Lissu. And the reasons and the manner in which he was arrested is really laughable, because it is the same thing that happened in Kenya. It is the same thing happening in Senegal and many other countries. And I've realized that we are dealing with the same issues in Africa. We tend to talk about democracy, yet we are very undemocratic. Now, it's reported that Tundu Lissu, the national vice chairman of Tanzania's main opposition leader, Chadema, has been arrested in Arusha city for holding a rally without a permit and preventing police officers from doing their job. Mr. Tundu Lissu was arrested along with his bodyguard and 3 other party leaders hours before a political rally in Karatu district. You know, the reason why this is very funny, it is said that he held a rally without a permit, and then the last part is very funny, that he prevented the police from doing their job. It caught my attention because a few months ago we faced the same kind of treatment when Raila's opposition team was really intimidated when they went to the street to complain about the high cost of living. And Raila's bodyguard was arrested. Raila's spokesperson Daisy Onyango was arrested. Raila's close allies like Babu Owino and many others were arrested. And then people were killed on the streets and others were maimed. Later, the president and his team praised the police for doing a good job. Before these rallies, you could see the members of the police, the police service coming out to condemn and sometimes declare rallies illegal, saying that they didn't follow the law. And so sometimes they are being told, you must tell the police where you are going, how many people you are going to be with, such kind of things. And I thought we are still behind as a continent. And if you think that is the only thing that makes me conclude, you know, this same man Tundu Lissu, there was a time Tundu Lissu was shot at 12 times. I think there were 12 bullets, and he had to be rushed here in the Kenyatta National Hospital for treatment, and later I think he was taken to other countries, the Western countries. So this is not the only time, and it only shows you the way our African presidents are dealing with their opposition leaders. In Uganda, Bobby Wine, every time we have an election, he's arrested, his people are being thwarted, are being beaten, and it's not different from here. Sometimes he's being locked in a house, under house arrest. He's not allowed to hold any rally. I have a friend in the USA who was a very prominent leader in Uganda. And during the walk to work, I remember when they had launched a trekking to work kind of policy, where the opposition decided that they were going to leave behind their vehicles to go to work. Back then, Besigye was the main opposition leader in Uganda. This man was beaten, and today he can't walk well. In fact, he's undergoing speech therapy because he cannot even talk well. And he's the one who gave me the story. We met through this channel when I was talking about African democracy and how the Western nations interfere with our elections. And he gave me a story, very touching. He sent me his pictures when he's going through speech therapy with the trainers. Besigye himself, who was leading opposition then, was beaten at some points. Some hot pepper, pilipili, was really poured into his eyes. They had to rush him to Kenyatta Hospital again. In Senegal, Ousmane Sonko is a a very young man, an opposition leader, and is a thorn in the flesh to the powers that be. They leveled charges against him from rape to interfering with the government and all that, and he was sentenced. He's got several cases against him that he's serving others in his house and others, just quite an intertwined interference. And they're really dealing with him with impunity, because they have the police, they have the Supreme Court and everything. And if you look at the problems that we have, you will realize that our Supreme Courts in Africa are acting the same way. In Senegal, that is what happened. Even when it comes to elections in Kenya, that is what they did. They will, the government or the people supported by the deep state and the powers that be will be declared the winners of elections, and will be told to go to maybe Supreme Courts and or the courts that deal with those problems, and they will still hold the victory of those they want to be in power. The funniest part of our struggle as a continent is that we still have opposition leaders who, instead of embracing the fights and struggle of their fellow opposition leaders, they want to criticize. And some of them have really felt the bitter taste of these powers, and they regret their criticism. In Nigeria, Peter Obi rushed into congratulating William Ruto when he was declared the winner. And he said he hoped under William Ruto, democracy and the torch of democracy would shine in Africa. When he knew very well that people were fighting about his victory, and there were a lot of push and pull and doubts. Now, a few months later, he tasted the very bitter, cruel hand of the Western machination, because Kenyans were crying foul, telling him that this victory was given by the USA. Now, as we speak, they went for an election. They could not unite as an opposition, and they were thwarted. He was really loved by the youth, but he could not win that election. And everybody knows that there was the cruel hand of the Western, interference there. They went to the tribunal to challenge the victory of Peter of Ahmed, the president of Nigeria there, but it was upheld. Now they are planning to appeal, and Kenyans are telling him that you rushed in congratulating William Ruto. Now you are facing the very predicament that we faced as a nation. In South Africa, Malema, the outspoken opposition leader there, even went as far as warning Raila and telling him that he would not allow Raila to, lead demonstrations in our country. You can imagine a South African citizen saying that he will not allow Raila Amolo Odinga to hold demonstrations in Kenya. And it tells you that there are other opposition leaders who still don't want to embrace togetherness, because we've realized that we are facing the same problem. Dealing with poverty is our main problem. There is a lack of democracy. It is our problem. Dealing with the interference from the external forces is still our problem. Our courts and the judicial system are pocketed, and they serve the executive arm of the government. We are still, trying to fight illiteracy in Africa. We are fighting the Western interference with our natural resources, and how they pit leaders against each other to fight, and they're leading coups. But people like Malema don't understand. And so, ladies and gentlemen, remember, the reason why it is eye-catching is because Raila Amolo Odinga, while suffering, while being, while the government was trying to intimidate his supporters, tried reaching out to Suluhu Hassan to come and negotiate peace in Kenya. And I was just wondering, would it have worked? Because Suluhu is a president of Tanzania. And these presidents, whether it is Museveni, whether it is Kagame, wherever they are, they will always protect their fellow presidents. And so I'm just wondering, if Suluhu is dealing with her opposition leader like this, and then William Ruto might have reached to her, and I knew and shared the same sentiments that unajua watu wanasumbua our opposition leaders. Was she going to preside over a neutral process? I'm just wondering, because I remember there was that problem where the government was saying Suluhu was not in the country and Raila was saying yeah, she was in the country. It tells me that these people work under scratch my back, I scratch your back. And I think wherever Raila is, she is just regretting why he even, wanted, if at all is the one wanted, Suluhu to preside over these talks and negotiations. It wouldn't have worked. And I'm thinking that a sitting president cannot preside over a peaceful negotiated democracy, because he suffers the same thing. He knows, all of them feel that opposition leaders are just but people who are hell-bent in rocking and causing chaos in their countries. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the apprehension of Tundu Lissu is something that must be condemned, because this, if this trend continues, then we will never attain the level of democracy that we want as a nation. And all these presidents are reading from the same page. They are all dictators. And one thing is that the most painful part of it is that they are being supported by America and the UK and all that. When opposition supporters were being butchered in Kenya, the Western countries did not speak a word. The only time Meg Whitman came was to say that the last year's elections were the fairest and the freest we've ever held in our country. And so we want to stand together with Tundu Lissu. If at all he was arrested, let the legal process, takes its course. But interfering, shooting, and maiming people is something that we must condemn.